Oh, hello.
Okay, so welcome everybody to this event. It's really an honor to see so many people that is interested to participate in such an important topic. So my name is Luis Bispo. I'm a world citizen. I consider myself a world citizen, and I also consider myself a world federalist. Um, just before we start, um, on behalf of the World Citizens Association of Australia, we respect and honor Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island elders, past, present, and future. We acknowledge the stories, traditions, and living cultures of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people on this land and commit to building a brighter future together. So this event will be recorded and will be circulating to the members of the World Citizens Association of Australia, and will be potentially uploaded on YouTube, so we can broadcast to our friends, family, and colleagues. So thank you so much for joining this event entitled How to Build Up a Sense of World Citizenship in People's Heart and Mind. Um, as we all know, our planet Earth is in crisis. Our system is in crisis. There are so many conflicts happening nowadays. We need to find a solution to bring people together to solve global problems. There are so many global problems in today's time that require global solutions. And we believe that by being a world citizen, by having a sense of world citizen, we can have a sense of caring about global issues. Because what we do locally can impact globally. So again, thank you for joining this event. We gather here um, 5 panelists to discuss about how to build up a sense of global citizenship within people's heart and mind, because a lot of the actions that we take uh, come from our heart and from our brain, from our heart and from our mind. So we need to change people's heart and mind. We have 5 panelists. We have here with us Michael Demo. Michael Demo is a social educator, environmental educator. She's a social environmental educator. We have Dr. Liliani. She's the founder of the World Citizen Association of Australia. We have Dr. John Hegarty. He is a non-honorary life member of the association. We have Nadia Tomi. She's the treasurer of the association. And we have Dr. James Page. He is an anthropologist and educator. He's based in Queensland, Australia. So um, I would like to invite the first speaker of this webinar or panel discussion. The first speaker is Dr. Is Michael Demo. Um, so Michael Demo is retired after nearly 30 years as a senior technical officer at the University of New South Wales, initially in the School of Geology and then in the School of Biological, Environmental and Earth Sciences when the two departments merged. He is currently living on the mid-north coast of New South Wales and is undertaking a Bachelor of Sustainability with the University of New England, Armidale. He is also a member of the Baha'i Faith and a long-term campaigner for peace and better global governance. He served as secretary of the World Citizen Association of Australia from its beginning until 2015, as well as assisting with the aid project, and he remains on the council. So I would like to welcome Michael DeMol to take the floor. And he has got a PowerPoint presentation to discuss and to present to you. Everything okay, Michael?
Yes, you start the PowerPoint just on the second slide, slide number 2, please.
Yes.
Go back. That's about slide 7. We need to go to slide 2. So, what we have to understand is that humanity is in the middle of a massive shift in the social evolution of the planet. We have progressively and socially evolved from family to tribe to city-state and nation. And now we are evolving socially to a state of one common home, the planet itself, to a state of global maturity. We need a new global mindset that we are not just citizens of Australia, citizens of the Philippines, citizens of India, and so on, each looking after their own self-interest at the expense of all others and the planet. Rather, we need a new mindset of being global citizens of our one common home, of one country, planet Earth itself. Next slide. Conferences of the parties are where parties or governments assess global efforts to advance the key Paris Agreement aim of limiting global warming to as close as possible to 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels. For 30 years, the United Nations has convened climate COPs, and in that time emissions have doubled. This failure, along with the existential threats of biodiversity loss, nuclear proliferation, war, pandemics, and global poverty, result from a fragmented mindset of nations, tribes, and ethnic groups looking after their own self-interests at the expense of all others and the planet itself, rather than drawing on their collective inheritance to take up consciously and systematically the responsibility for the design of their future. So how can we begin this process of consciously and systematically taking up the responsibility for the design of our future? Okay, next slide, thanks. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, tipping points are critical thresholds in a system that, when exceeded, can lead to a significant change in the state of the system, often with an understanding that the change is irreversible. What we need now to build a sense of world citizenship is a tipping point of the mind, from a fragmented world view to a world citizenship view. Just as climate tipping points are arrived at by global changes to the atmosphere, a mind's tipping point will be reached by the realization that we have entered a new global era, requiring a break from the fragmented world mindset to the earth is but one country and humankind its citizens mindset. Next slide, thank you. There are 2 diagrams illustrating 2 concepts for shifting our perspectives. With associated practical steps, we can show people as a model to help them internalize our message to a much greater degree than mere words could achieve. The first diagram is donut economics, which the author Kate Raworth from Oxford University in England describes as an economic compass for the 21st century. Next slide. The essence of the donut is a social foundation of well-being. That's the circle, the lower circle. A social foundation of well-being that no one should fall below, and an ecological ceiling of planetary pressure that we should not go beyond. Below the donut's social foundation lie shortfalls in human well-being faced by those who lack life's essentials, such as food, education, and housing. Beyond the ecological ceiling lies pressures on Earth's life-giving systems, such as through climate change, ocean acidification, and chemical pollution. But between these two sets of boundaries lies a sweet spot shaped unmistakably like a donut that is both an ecologically safe and socially just space for humanity. The 21st century task is an unprecedented one to bring all humanity into that safe and just space. Australian scientist, Professor Will Steffen from the Australian National University introduced the planetary boundary concepts in 2009. And when the work of Will Steffen is combined with that of Kate Rayworth, we get the next diagram too. Next slide. The red portions of this diagram represent areas of overshoot already beyond the ecological ceiling of planetary boundaries, and areas of planetary failure below the social foundation no person ought to fall below. The areas exceeding the planetary boundaries have the highest risk-weighted consequences for the planet. If we go to the next slide, thanks. This is the front cover of a booklet called Creating City Portraits, and I'll put the linkage to this book in later on into the chat. And this is related to donut economics. The two rings in the picture there are the donut rings, and it contains what it calls the four lenses of the city portraits. So if you could do the next slide, please. These are the four lenses of the city portrait booklet. So the guide suggests consulting with the people, everybody should do this, consulting with the people of a local government area, so that's where you live in your locality, across many layers of society, such as social enterprises, community activists, religious leaders, Indigenous leaders, businesses, educators, and local governments, to answer these four questions of the four lenses. So the first one is, what would it mean for the people of this city to thrive? So in where it says this city, you can put in your town's name, and so on with the other questions. So after consulting with all these people about how to answer these questions, then you proceed to create guiding principles and governmental and economic policies to help align that community's people with the answers that you come up with that would help your city to thrive, that you would help it to thrive within its natural habitat, that whatever you do in your city would respect the well-being of people worldwide, and whatever you do in your city would respect the health of the whole planet. And then you encourage the whole local government area to adopt whatever it is that needs to answer these questions. And this is how a global citizen keeps alive the sense of world citizenship within people's hearts and minds by carrying out these exercises. Thank you. That's the end of my talk.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was really insightful, and thank you for introducing the four lenses of the city portrait, which mention about the element of local, global, ecological, and social. And as you mentioned, those are elements that can shape a world citizen that cares about global issues. So thank you so much, Michael Demol.
And if anyone has any questions, just put them in the chat and we'll get
Yes,
to it later.
we are going to have after the talk of the panelists, we are going to have a session for question and answers. So feel free to drop your question in the chat. Now, let's move on to the next speaker of this panel discussion, this webinar, how to build up a sense of world citizenship within people's heart and mind. The next speaker is Dr. Liliane Metz-Krenger. She's the founder of the World Citizens Association of Australia, along with Dr. Chris Hammer, our current president, and she's now a life member of the association. Dr. Liliane settled in Australia for her retirement after a long career in gynecology and family planning across the globe, working with US Aid and Johns Hopkins University in Africa, Americas, Kazakhstan, and Asia. She also worked with USA, Australia Aid in the Pacific to promote health and balanced families across cultures. Liliane was the General Secretary of the French World Citizen Association, for which she is still active remotely. She was also the Vice President of the World Movement for Global Democracy Steering Committee in India and the former President of the People's Congress. She was very active in the founding and executive committee of Global Citizens for Peace in Melbourne. So thank you so much for being one of the panelists, Dr. Liliane, and I'll pass the floor to you. She also prepared a PowerPoint presentation, so I'll share her PowerPoint with all of you.
Thank you. Hello.
The floor is yours, Dr. Liliane.
Okay, thank you. Can I talk?
Yes.
Okay, good evening to everybody. Thank you, Louise, for your kind introduction. And I will try to explain what I have achieved until now. As you see, I'm not young, and I'm a world citizen since a long, long, long time. And I would at least explain the orientation of my life and the way I achieved to be world citizen. First of all, I would like to talk about my gynecology and obstetrics specialization that I did. But I think I like to do it since a long time when I was a little girl. But it's the orientation of my life who took me there mostly. Family planning is the key of success on earth. If the families are happy, if the family function well, so everything should be functioning, and we should work always on that. So I worked with USAID, I worked with Aussie Aid, I worked with Project Hope in Virginia, and have traveled all over the world, training doctors in key surgical procedures of family planning programs, and also have formed and tried to organize childcare clinics, especially clinics to go everywhere, even in the mountains. And I have gone in all the countries. I have seen 99 countries for my job, but unfortunately I couldn't reach 100. I don't know why, but it stopped there. So I tried to organize my life balanced between having something to do, like I would be responsible for something, and something to achieve. But it was not very, very successful. But I'm still there. And I came back to my pond. I came back to Australia. I'm not Australian, but I came back where and when, and seeing hello to my old friend Chris Hamer, where we tried to organize here. And it's a good country. That's why I wanted to help Australia to have programs of family planning. And I want to say thank you to Chris for that. It has been very difficult to hope and to work on the improvement of health and good lives on this planet. I was born in the north of France on the border of Germany 6 years before World War 1933. In 1939, the German army entered my classroom and ordered us, kids, 6 years old, no longer to speak French, but only German. The gun's motivation, of course, certainly worked fast, and we were fluent in no time. Our parents and us, we were very, very concerned about what was arriving. But it gives you a kick to be courageous for life, and you say, these people did it to me, I would better respond and do something for the earth. 2 years later, I was able, when my dad, who was not a prisoner, but was a refugee in Africa, because he was in the army, came, and we could flee to South France, where I could continue my studies in peace and try to do something from because I was volunteer, because I had suffered from what they have done to me. And so in my family, it was difficult to make decisions because we were shocked by what we went through. And I, at that time, went to university because I had decided to go into health and to help the world. I went to university in South France, where we were refugees. And there I studied and got my doctorate and met a nice young doctor. And we got married. And I went with him to Tunisia. Why to Tunisia? Because two things. President Bourguiba, who was in Tunisia, was a fantastic president, not the one we have now, sorry to say that. He was thinking about his country. He was thinking about improving things, and he wanted to improve, first of all, mother and child health and family's health. He called me and asked me if I could take care of an orphanage of more than 1,000 little boys and girls, and so I did. Sorry. Sorry, I think about all these children. We got married with my husband and had 2 children. I had to learn Arabic to treat women, along with various local dialects. Then I practiced medicine in South Tunisia and became well acquainted with nomadic tribes, their way of life. The population was poor and had installed family planning and dispensaries, distribute food and medication. We organized the clinic on wheels to tour the country and heal the people, and for which I was given grants by governments, and in particular by USAID Program to Africa and the Johns Hopkins Research Study Center. From there, I traveled the world implementing a new way of following population's health and well-being across Africa and Asia. And especially not just to treat them and leave, but try to help them to understand what they were missing and what they would try to understand, what they could do to themselves, to help themselves. Money was available with the USAID. At that time, we were good people still. There are many challenges when working across the world among different cultures and with different governments. Colleagues might be less likely to let their voices heard. Strong prejudices of certain cultures might stifle, you say stifle? English is sometimes a bit difficult for me. And the way of work of professional communication can be misinterpreted. Religious beliefs can be difficult to overcome and work with. And of course, the position of women like me are respected differently in different countries. But if you make yourself understanding the problems the people have, they love you and they like you. As a world citizen, it is important to do something with your life, to leave the world a better place than when you were born and when you arrived in the sun. In fact, each life is like a stream that every one of us will be following without any particular aim. By the way, we are not trained to think about the future and about the future generation. Now we are waking up. But before, we just have to find life, to study, to find a husband, and everything was fine. But this is not what we are here for. We have to make Earth a better place. It is important to channel our energy and direct your life to assist humans. Is it time? No, not yet. Okay. But I want to make Earth a better place, to assist humans and contribute to their development and especially their well being. And of course, to join us and support our organization and our partners to improve the world around us and to make it a better place. If interested and ready to help us, please register on our website. This is a bit of publicity. Thank you for your attention. Our aim is to encourage you to join our association and work with us on some of our projects and volunteer to support our actions toward world citizenship and democracy. Wow. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Liani. That was an incredible presentation. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, your photographs. You've got so much experience, and it's just a blessing that you could help so many children, so many humans, and that's
Not
the
finished.
and that's a full spirit of a global citizen. So thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now let's move on to the next panelist, the next speaker of this webinar, how to build up a sense of world citizenship in people's heart and mind. The next presenter, panelist is Dr. John Hegarty. Dr. John is a retired Australian educator with over 50 years experience. Commences as a science maths teacher, including 2 years overseas in British Columbia, Canada, and London, UK. He has 17 years as a principal of New South Wales schools, covering kindergarten to higher school certificate years. He has done initial studies at the University of Sydney, majored in education, psychology, and history, followed by a master's degree in educational innovation and organization. After further university studies in his 60s, his last position was a school counselor at Westfields Sports High School, a famous sports high school, and nearby King Park Public School for 6 years. He has a lifetime interest in conflict resolution with related university and other training, as well as extensive voluntary community activities. In the 90s, he was the president for 2 years of the New South Wales branch of the Australian Guidance and Counselling Association, which has been renamed in recent years as SCPA New South Wales, School Counselling and Psychology Association of New South Wales. He joined the World Citizen Association of Australia soon after hearing Chris Hammer in 2014 at the National United Nations Association of Australia conference, and has been active and greatly appreciate the opportunities to be involved. He has been on the advisory board, a project officer, and have taken teams from his retirement village to model global parliament sessions. He has sent many of his teaching and knowledge resources to Bangladesh through the Bangladesh Aid Program. He was the first in Australia to show an early edition of the film The World is My Country, related to Gary Davis, and he's following its further development. The World Citizen Association of Australia has been a great inspiration to him for many years. So I would like to pass the floor to Dr. John Hegarty.
Thanks, Louis. But first, I must say I've got a master's degree after the first degree, then a postgrad diploma, but no doctorate. So we'll have to get rid of the doctorate. Look, I generally find we're all different in the way we present, but I generally find if I read a book, an article, I see a movie or go to a conference or travel somewhere, if I can get one or two good ideas out of that, that's a great thing that happens. Now, tonight I'm going to throw lots of ideas at you, and hopefully some of them you will incorporate it in some of the things you do. I'm delighted that this is going to be on YouTube, as was said, because that means there can be further discussion, etc. I think one of the things that, by the way, there is a crisis, but there's also wonder, a world that I just cannot believe how marvelous it is. It's full of wonder, and there's plenty of hope for the better world. We've got to try and get those two things into perspective. One of the things, when things happen, we have two ways of looking at it. And I just love little gimmicks and a bit of fun. And I hope you can see this. Here's a little wooden thing it's a wooden thing that a neighbour made about the Thinker statue by Rodin. But if you look at it, because it's got two pieces, if you look at one side, that's a sad face. If you look at the other, it's got a smiley face. I think it's most important to have this positive aspect. Anyway, by the way, we can learn from one another. I was once appointed to a school where everybody used the cane, and we can learn from one another. For instance, there's a little red, somebody realized that I had a wonderful experience in Canada. We were using the cane when I was appointed to that school. But when I ended up for 18 months in Canada, teaching subjects I'd never been trained in over the whole range, not one child misbehaved in 18 months in 2 schools. So isn't that amazing? Inspired the rest of my career. By the way, we can learn from one another. One of the ways here, by the way, is a book about the 1,000-person retirement village that I live in, and it's got a subtitle, Just Like an Extended Family. And so that's, a published book. I'm writing a book about halfway through now called Just Like a Happy Extended World Family. And there's every justification for that. And here's hoping that that example gets everywhere. By the way, we are all world citizens in many ways because, for instance, something decades and decades ago, I read the 100% American. America, of course, is a wonderful country, always has been. And sometimes when you're in your own country, whether it's Australia or America, you think, oh, we've got the best, we do this, that, and the other. But this was an article called the 100% American. It could be written about Australia, but I'll just read the last paragraph. While you read a news of the day imprinted in characters invented by the ancient Semites by a process invented in Germany upon a material invented in China, as he scans the latest editorial pointing out the dire results of our institutions of accepting foreign ideas, he will not fail to thank a Hebrew God in an Indo-European language that he is 100% American or Australian. We learn from one another all the time. The other thing, okay, what do we, whoops, that was one, now two. By the way, I've got, oh, good heavens. Let me know when I'm 2 minutes away, will you, Louis? For hearts, it's got to be emotions. They've got to have excitement,
Yeah.
family, hope.
Okay, I just knocked my foot.
Sorry. Joy, peace, and awe. So a lot to do is with education. By the way, I once started a junior world citizenship. Let's make it simple. I enrolled my first young teenager, and by saying, look, do you want to get on with everybody in the world and cooperate? Yes, he said. I said, well, that's the world citizenship. Now, by the way, I didn't follow that project up because soon after, at least in New South Wales, if not in the whole country, every teacher in the whole of the state, or I think it went world countrywide, had to ensure that every lesson included the global aspect. That was amazing. Now, sadly, by the way, the grant stopped to the curriculum group that was putting out marvelous resources, which I could show you. So we've got to, if we're going to get this in hearts and minds, getting into the schools is great. Pushing the politicians to fund exciting things in great things. By the way, globalization seems to, it goes up and down, or world citizenship. My own school, which high school, was the first public school in Australia, by the way, Fort Street in Sydney. It at one stage for years and had prizes for world citizenship. So let's get into the schools, get everybody action. By the way, it's not much use just talking about things, it's actions that do a lot. And there are so many actions. For instance, in this, I just looked at an old newsletter from my village here, and we have one all the time, and they have dinners, special dinners with all sorts of meals from every country. There was a fashion parade with the people doing all sorts of fashion items. By the way, you've got to come up with imagination. Knowledge is limited, imagination is unlimited. By the way, each one of you is magic. When I was a school principal, I gave this little magic wand to people. By the way, you're all magic to me because I don't know where you all live exactly, but if your neighbour falls over next time you walk out of your house, I can't help them, but you can. So you can do something I cannot possibly do, and that's magic. I've given away 1,000 magic wands, and the kids at my school used to die to get a magic wand. I won't bore you with the details. Another thing, the imagination is amazing. I had trouble when I was a psychologist counsellor in schools. But I asked the kids to imagine that I was invisible, because every other time I went into class, the teacher would say, stand up and say, good morning, Mr. Haggerty. So I said, look, imagine I'm invisible. And that happened for years. The most I got was a sly little wink at me saying, oh, we're playing this game, aren't we? So I was able to see exactly how the teachers were teaching, etc. So minds, of course, books, there's endless numbers of books, and some are so critical. For instance, one in the 1990s, I went to a conference and learned about the win-win philosophy. So I bought that book. Now I've got 100 books in a spot in my place here about the positive aspects of life. You don't only buy one of them, by the way. I've also got, I usually get 4 or 5 of any book that has this positive aspect. This is one of the latest that I've been given about good people, and eventually there'll be some way of passing on some specifics.
1 minute, 1 minute, Dr. John.
Sorry?
1 minute.
1 minute, fantastic. Look, all I can say is I'm glad there'll be continuous for the last since 2018. Oh, by the way, I was invited, they ignored the conference fee because they knew my interest, to the Parliament of World Religions 2009. 6,000 people from every country of the world were there in all the costumes you could imagine. In a whole week, not one unkind word or deed. Everybody got well from every country, every nation. Look, I've got to stop there, but thanks for the marvelous opportunity. It's a great, great world.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John. Like I really like when you mention that we are just like a happy extended global family, and that's very true. Like we should care about each other regardless of where we are, regardless of religion or belief. We are all humans, and we are an extended global family. So thank you so much for your lovely presentation, showing lots of interesting books and sharing your thoughts. Really appreciate it. So let's move on to the next speaker. The next panelist is Nadia. Nadia, she's the treasurer of the World Citizens Association of Australia. She's working with the president of the association, Dr. Chris Hammer. Before joining the association, Nadia has been a long-term standing member of the board of the New South Wales branch of the Australian Institute of Australian Affairs. And she has pursued a long career in IT engineering. Just hold on, let me mute. She has pursued a career in IT engineering and telecommunications across the globe, working for large multinationals in the like IBM USA, Sprint Telecom, France Telecom, and Oki Japan, across different cultures and in various languages. Nadia has lived in North Africa, Europe, Australia, and has adopted children from South America. Nadia is the holder of multiple nationalities, and with her family sees herself as a world citizen rather than Australian, French, South American, or African. Nadia believes that developing into a world citizen is vital for everyone, and that respect for human rights and cultural diversity are what characterize a world citizen. She is also a member of the World Federalist Movement. So thank you, Nadia, for being one of the panelists. She prepared a PowerPoint presentation as well, in which I will share with all of you now. Nadia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thanks, Lewis, for your nice intro. My name is Nadia, and I'm the treasurer of the World Citizen Association of Australia. Tonight, I'm going to attempt to communicate to you the reasons why we organize as an association to input on a few items on the scene of the world politics, and why our shared future depends on our ability to come together as one planet, one family, as we mentioned so many times already tonight. So how did world citizenship start? After World War I and then World War II, the concept of world citizenship matured as many allied nations got together to fight evil with evil. And you would remember nuclear bombs were launched on Japan. As the 20th century ended, people were full of expectations for a world of peaceful coexistence. Europe was founded, and European nations shared their decision and key concerns for peace and prosperity as one. They became an admirable model of multinational parliament, world citizens considered this European Union as a very good start. Working myself for IBM, as Lewis mentioned, and telecommunications in the 1980s and 1990s, that is before the internet and emails, I felt firsthand this excitement, creating our new world, our progress in technology. We really, if you think about it, enabled global trade with finance and commerce, global telecommunications with internet and transparency of media and information, and then global transport. We call it the three big T's, you know. A world citizen takes an active role, even small, in their community. They work with others to make our planet more peaceful, more sustainable, and fairer at any level possible for them. So it's about being informed, and if we can, it's about helping, assisting, volunteering, but also addressing famine, health, education, and environmental issues. Some of the economic and social issues are now beyond any one nation's ability to solve, and I'm talking about food security, therefore securing climate change issues, food provision, medical provision, and environmental sustainability. We need to feel a sense of common responsibility and look for solutions together as world citizens. And that might require profound change in the way we govern the planet. And we already mentioned world federalism. More than ever before, people and small organizations are asked for input and ideas. We saw much of this unity perspective in 2020 with the onset of the pandemic, you would remember, when in the heart of Delhi, the G20 took center stage with the strongest sentiment of togetherness and shared responsibility. And they had one slogan: one Earth, one family, one future. It was a call to action about sustainability, one family ensuring no one was left behind, one future, a shared destiny with no nation thriving in isolation. Sorry, Lewis, I'm confusing you. But are we really any closer today to a world of peace? How is the 21st century really shaping up? Although national barriers are lower than ever before, the great powers' interests are still taking priority in international politics. We have huge inequalities in the world. There are endless regional conflicts and constant threat of deadly terrorism. We have become numb to genocides and nations' extermination. The movement of people from poor nations to richer ones is unstoppable. And we are seeing a revival of nationalism. Autocrats might be ancient as a word, but globalization, migration, and technology are giving those autocrats fresh reasons to redo what their grandfathers had done, fighting evil with evil. Is that the right solution? So what can we do for a world of peace? Number one, education is key. And the World Citizen Association of Australia has launched key programs for a global parliament model in schools to address the global issues we are facing today. On the 11th of November, for example, we are organising a practical at the New South Wales Parliament with school students. Another key step is to get involved in the programs of international cooperation and regulation. I was recently contributing to an article for the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade on how Australia could respond to the priorities of the Pacific Forum, where all the Pacific nations are represented. Issues of literacy, hospitals, health in remote islands in the Pacific, issues of ocean protection from excessive fishing, naval security, and I'm telling you, Australia is providing much of this, as well as Pacific trade issues. All these were addressed, and they are still addressed at the Pacific Forum. They're trying to do a mini European Commission where such various identities and cultures are represented. This input from our association was sent to the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and very much like the UN, four main purposes are involved: help nations work together, improve the lives of poor people, conquer hunger, disease, and illiteracy, and encourage respect for each other's rights and freedom. And most of all, to be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations to achieve these goals. But remember, the UN or DFAT can only be effective if member states cooperate and work together toward common goals. And they use small organizations like ours to contribute and support those goals. That's how they're getting synergy. And it's fantastic for us to be able to be involved at that level. The World Citizen Association of Australia proposes that a democratic global parliament be created, where global problems can be discussed and settled. Laws to protect us all can be established, and people from around the world are able to have a say concerning those great global issues that affect us all. Chris Hamer, our president, has written a book called The Global Parliament. And I really, if you are interested in world citizenship, please take time to read this. It's available on Amazon. Just recently, we were asked to sign a letter in support of a bigger role of the UN Summit of the Future, to be better equipped to tackle global challenges. Through this letter, we wanted to ensure that some of this summit conversation was dedicated to transforming global governance to become more democratic and more inclusive. This summit took place only a month ago on the 22nd and 23rd of September. So you see, our association is very involved in many inputs. It has also various strategic alliances and partnership of which we are closely aligned. For example, the World Federalist Movement, the Coalition for World Security and Community of Democratic Nations, the Institute for Global Peace and Sustainable Governance.
Nadia? Hello? Are you there with? Can anybody hear?
I can hear you.
You, yeah, we hear you, but I think she's finished.
No,
I cannot hear Nadia anymore.
She froze, I think.
Okay.
Just carry on, I think.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nadia, for your presentation. I really liked when you mentioned about common responsibility, and that connects my thoughts with what John said before about saying that we are just like a happy extended global family, but connecting with what Nadia said, we have global responsibility, working for peace, for a more peaceful, a more sustainable and fairer planet. So thank you so much for your amazing presentation.
thank you. Sorry, I don't know why the system stopped.
That's okay. So now let's move on to the next panelist. Last but not least, we have Dr. James Page. Dr. James Page is an Australian educationist and anthropologist, and a recognized authority within the field of peace education. He is an adjunct professor with the University of New England, Armidale, and also works in teacher education with the Australian Catholic University in Brisbane. So thank you so much for participating. Dr. James, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Lewis. As time will be running out, you'll be pleased to know that I can do this briefly because much of what I have to say was covered in other speakers. But I just want to make 6 points with regard to the question of how we can build a sense of global citizenships in our hearts and minds. 6 points, here we go. Point number one, surprisingly, I think we might be already there to a large extent. Now, a number of speakers have said we have much further to go, but there's a great deal of sense of shared humanity in the world, a great sense of global consciousness than we sometimes give ourselves credit for. Second point is there's a very useful concept of that of democratic deficit, which is related to our frustration sometimes that things aren't happening as fast as we might want them to happen. And democratic deficit just says that quite often governments, including governments which claim to be democratic, don't represent the views of people. So that ties into the fact that there may be a greater sense of global citizenship than we realise. Point number 3, I think it's important to empower individuals, and a number of people have spoken about that. Point number 4, I think there is sometimes an anti-utopianism in our culture. And what I mean by that is that what has been in the past will be what happens. And so therefore, any sense of global government or better improved global governance, let's just put it in that way, cannot succeed. And we need to take that head on and say that, yes, we can have change. I'll say a little bit more about that. Point number 5, and some speakers have already touched on this, is I think we need to interrogate religious traditions. And we live in a strange world where in many cases it's a post-religious world, but particularly in the global, that's very much in the global north, particularly in the global south, religious traditions are still very strong. And quite often religion is seen to be legitimating war, legitimating the status quo, and legitimating the nation state. We need to look at the, if you like, the cooperative elements of religious traditions and the utopian elements of religious traditions. In other words, there can be change. We can build a new world now. The final point is just a quotation from Dostoevsky, the Russian novelist. Beauty can change the world. And some other speakers have touched on this. Very briefly, in 2 points, it's important to acknowledge the beauty of the world and ourselves and humanity. It's sort of a counter to cynicism. And secondly, that has a second dimension in that we can be creative ourselves, because by being creative, we are in fact a model that for change. And I'll finish.
Amazing, Dr. James. Thank you for your contribution. We also had a comment here while you were speaking from Austin Mackel, and he said, I agree with Dr. James. There is a strong sense of global citizenship among people, but not reflected by government. So if Austin, if you want to comment something else on that, that would be brilliant. But yes.
I would follow up really quickly.
Yeah.
I'd say that there's a strong citizenship. There is that strong sense. There's a lot more progressive people in the world than progressive people realize. I think one of the things that the media does and the government does is it's not actually good at changing people's minds about issues, but it's good at making them feel powerless and making them feel isolated and telling them that nobody else shares those beliefs. So you better just, keep your head down and go along with the pack. And so we can all end up in a situation where everybody wants change, but nobody realizes that everybody wants change because we don't, our feelings aren't visible to each other. So I was just agreeing with Dr. Page. And while I've got the floor very quickly, I'll just say I think in terms of practical expressions of global citizenship, it is related to this, is the massive pro-Palestine anti-genocide protests that are happening all around the world right now, filling up college campuses, blocking streets. The arms fair that was due to take place in Sydney has been cancelled because they were worried about protests that were going to go ahead. And that is, if it's not called world citizenship, it's an expression of world citizenship nonetheless. We've got a genocide happening in Gaza. We've got American bombs being dropped on UN buildings. We've got staff from the UN being killed. And a practical way we can build world citizenship is by showing up and being present at the rallies for Palestine that are going on all around us. And I'm going to be doing that tomorrow here in Blackheath. And I know that there's one in Sydney on Sunday, I believe.
Thank you so much, Austin. Great contribution. By the way, Austin is a journalist and he is a writer as well. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you.
So we can quickly move on to some question and answers. We can save 4 to 5 minutes for 3 to 5 minutes for question and answers, and then we can close the meeting. Any questions from does somebody has any question to the panelists?
Can I, do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
No, Austin has actually said, and James Space also said, that we are not visible because the media, governments don't want us to be visible, even to one another, not even to global communities. So what do we do to overcome this barrier?
One of the panelists, would you like to comment on top of what Wally said?
I think if you get the masses of humanity alongside, then there has to be a flow on eventually to government because they like to be elected. But that's all I can say for that.
Yeah, one thing, can we actually collaboratively have our own strong media? This could be another thing to start with and move forward, I believe.
Can I just say quickly, I am involved in media activism projects, and we don't have time in 3 or 4 minutes to talk about them. But Islam, if you wanted to reach out to me separately, that's a conversation I'm very involved in.
Okay.
Thank you, Wally.
We might be able to do it later.
Thank you, Wally. Thank you, Michael, Austin. I would like to drop a provocative question to the panelists. You know, sometimes people say that one of the downsides of being a global citizen or of thinking about global citizen is that people are less likely to express interest in their own country. So that's one of the arguments for some people against having a thought of being a global citizen, because people lose the interest of caring about their own nation. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, any comments?
Well, I could offer some thoughts. Local councils can deliver services adapted to the needs of the community they serve. For instance, the needs of residents in inner city Brisbane might be different to those of people in rural Queensland. And providing these services and facilities, councils make sure local communities work well from day to day, whereas state laws look after things like electricity supplies, water supplies and roads and rail connecting different cities, which may be beyond local councils to take care of. Then the Commonwealth Government looks after international and Australian trade and commerce, national defence, foreign policy, currency, Medicare, immigration, postal and telecommunications services. These things are to some extent beyond what local, state and governments would satisfactorily supply. World citizenship implies a global governance will just be another level that looks after the general interests of humanity as a whole. And if done right, global governance may strengthen people's caring about issues within their own country, especially if they come to understand that global governance may address issues that call into question the very survival of humanity as a species that individual nations alone could not address. If, for example, a global issue may be preventing biodiversity loss, which at a country level may translate into a total ceasing of all logging of native forests, this may reduce koala extinction rates. Forest workers could be retrained as national park rangers or forest regeneration officers. And so the question is, would we then be less caring about our country with such things happening?
Thank you, Michael. And you are muted, John. We can conclude this session in 1 or 2 minutes, so we can go to the final thoughts.
No, I was just thinking that balance, as Michael said, balancing local and global perspectives can create actually a more inclusive and effective way, because you're addressing both sets of challenges. You have one issue, as you said, and then you have the national koala issue, but then you have the trade of all the wood trade and the logging trade. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you could have local issue, but it's linked to a global issue.
Yes. For example, the release of carbon to the atmosphere.
Exactly, etc., etc.
It's a global problem. Yes. Well, we have Dr. Rosa with the hands up. Thank you for participating. I know you are joining us from the Netherlands. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry I was in a bit late. I just wanted to add to the discussion that I think education is key. So we should include many young people in this issue and those issues. So localism is really important. And I think that global issues can be really tackled on a local scale by including students that are and other young people that are not mainly thinking about these issues, but just including them with their responsibilities and also giving them hope with local actions that link to the global scale. So we are doing many projects about giving hope, the pedagogies of hope combined with the pedagogies of collapse. And I think it's really important that we include young people in hopeful strategies to be participatory and be participants in democracy, but also raise voices. I think it's really important.
Absolutely, yeah.
Can I jump in on that, Louise, really quickly?
Sure.
Young people are at these Palestine protests. You know, we've got high schoolers and we've got Greta Thunberg was recently arrested at one. So the youth are out there talking about a global issue right now. And it's up to us to show up in those spaces, maybe wear a World Citizens of Australia t-shirt or something, and frame world citizenship as relevant to their concerns that they're out expressing right now, and which are, these are passionate young people who care about global justice, and they don't see global governance and global democracy as a pathway to global justice because no one's articulating the links between those two things.
I just wanted to comment on Austin. The point you said towards the end, that many youth are interested, participating, but we are not linking things together. I know we are going to finish soon, but I want to thank Nadia and Luis for organizing this very interesting online meeting. And now, just wanted to see whether we can make it a little bit regular, maybe once in couple of months, whatever, then more and more young people could join. And
Yeah.
we can.
Well, thank you so much. That's amazing. Amazing contributions here. Thank you for the presentations, panelists. Liliane, Dr. James Page, Michael, John, Nadia. That was just brilliant, and I reckon it was a successful first gathering. We will it's a first episode of a series, so we will organize a new panel discussion with new people in the future, and hopefully we can bring up more people together to this
Younger people, yeah.
to this discussion, or any age. Younger people as well would be great. So I will close the meeting, and thank you again, and I see you all next time.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.